about finger off the trigger and why it's important. Again, we're using a yellow training gun. Even though it's a yellow training gun, right? We always follow our basic rules of firearm safety. So I'm only going to point this down range, right? Because they're good habits. And again, even though it's yellow, I wouldn't point it in any other direction because there are other people here around the range, and right, we don't want to ever point this at someone else. So let's talk about finger off the trigger, right? So we talked about our grip, right? We pick it up with our right hand, and look where my finger is, right? It's off the trigger and it's up on the slide right here, okay? This is not finger off the trigger. Although technically it is off the trigger, but we don't want to practice with our finger here, right? We want to practice up here. Good habits, good safety, and the reason is because when our finger is here or even here and we're not shooting, okay, things can happen, accidental discharges can happen. I've seen it happen, okay? I work as a range safety officer. I've seen things happen, and thankfully nobody's gotten hurt, but people can get hurt. For instance, right, when you're practicing, let's say doing reloads, and if your finger's on the trigger and, right, pop in your magazine and you hit it too hard, the slide may come down, and if that finger's on the trigger, it's going to fire. If you're not ready to shoot, again, we always tell people, finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Why is that? If I'm here at the range and I'm just doing some practice target shooting, and right, we live here in South Florida, we got plenty of bugs and bees and all kinds of things flying around. If I'm not paying attention and a bee could come up and just distract me, or someone else, somebody could be walking up and distract me and maybe startle me. And what happens when you startle? When you get startled, right? You flinch, and if I flinch and my finger's up here, the gun's not gonna go off. If I flinch and my finger's here, oops, right? Again, accidental discharge. Some other things that we've talked about in our videos, in some of our other videos, about why we keep the finger off the trigger. Same thing, right? If we're practicing drawing from the holster, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna remove my gun here from the holster, right? If my finger is on the trigger, right, and I'm going back into my holster and I'm not paying attention, right, where's my finger? It gets caught in here, and if I go to push down, right, my finger could engage the trigger, accidental discharge, and guess what? Potentially shoot myself in the leg or someone else that's nearby. So, all important, finger off the trigger, good habits, be consistent, practice with your finger off the trigger.